Galatians 2, finishing up Galatians 2 and finishing up this section of Galatians as Paul is making his point here. Verse 20 and 21, I'm reading from the New Living Translation still. He says, "My old self has been crucified with Christ." There's a note there that some put it in the other verse. It doesn't matter. But it's continuing the thought, basically. You know, of course, you remember there were no verses or chapters in how the Bible is written in per se, you know, so these were added later to help us find things. He said, "It's no longer I who live, but Christ lives in me." He's kind of continuing this death, dying to the law theme. He says, "So I live in this earthly body by trusting in the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. I do not treat the grace of God as meaningless, for if keeping the law could make us right with God, then there was no need for Christ to die." Some of my notes on this one, as I said, he's building on this dying theme, dying to self. We talked about how do we die to self and stop trying to meet the requirements of the law, and we start to live for God. Well, living for God is trusting God. He says, I live in this earthly body by trusting in the Son of God. So our faith in our understanding of why we are made righteous is in Christ, and we understand that he did that. And he says, you know, it's no longer I who live, but Christ living in me. So it's becoming, as John the Baptist said, I must decrease, he must increase. We must allow Christ to become more and more like Christ, less like our sinful selves. That's the process of discipleship that we're all in. We're all on that process. He says, I live in this earthly body, trusting the Son of God who loved me, gave himself for me. Understanding the love and sacrifice of Christ helps us to live for him in a way that's honoring and putting our trust in that grace. Speaking of the grace, he says, I do not treat the grace of God as meaningless. ESV says, the English Standard Version says, nullify grace. New King James Version says, set aside, amplified, ignore, or nullify. We can't, he's really indicting those legalists in this by saying, like, the way you're living is treating the grace of God as totally nothing, as meaningless, as nullified, setting it aside. You're ignoring it. Totally by your behavior here, by trying to make people follow the laws. Because he says, if keeping the law can make us right, then Christ died for nothing. And we, of course, know that the law can't make us right, and if it could, then why would Christ had to come and suffer and die and give this sacrifice? And so again, Paul is making his point here. He's wrapping up that point there, and as we will continue on, and he'll be walking through the idea of law versus faith in Galatians 3. I hope that this has been helpful to you in some way. If you would like it, share it, leave a review, leave a comment, and let me know how I am doing and how I can better help you. Have a great day.